what are we growing? We're going to grow our people, we're going to grow our teams, we're going to grow our profit margins. Sometimes it's not the revenue itself. Sometimes we just got to grow what we already have. Mm-hmm. And we don't need to, and so sometimes we say growth to people and they get scared too.
Right.
You know what I mean? And we say operations to people and they're like, how am I supposed to figure anything out? I'm so confused and frustrated right now, and this feels like a dumpster fire, and everything feels like more gas rather than water. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so that's the thing, though. We got to get through that to where we actually have a system that you can plug into. And I always ask the question to people is, if you died today, would your business die with you? Mm-hmm. That's a great question. Because the reason is, if you died today and your business dies with you, you have no system. You are the system.
Right. And then hence the frustration and everything else that most people tag on to being an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
When you're, or not even an entrepreneur, hey, the business owns you. You just have a job.
Yeah.
Welcome to The Roll Call, the podcast where we dive into the roles that define us. I'm your host, John Glahn. On each episode, we explore the journeys of people discovering their true roles in life, business, and beyond. Get ready for inspiring conversations about finding purpose and authenticity. Let's roll the roll call.
Welcome, everyone. I'm your host, John Glahn, and I have with me Coach Rusty Burnside, who will get into all the wonderful things that he is involved in. Looks like everyone is accounted for. Let's start the roll call.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is awesome. I'm excited to be here to share what I can with you. So, Rusty Burnside. I'm a Bloom Growth coach. We definitely helping businesses grow, trying to figure that piece of the puzzle out, right? Get them on the offensive side of it. And I've been in this coaching space for 20 plus years now. I've been an entrepreneur for over 30 years. Some successful businesses, some not so successful businesses, but learned a lot from both of them. And so, just excited to be here with you today on it.
Excellent. I can't wait to hear some stories. And, I wanted Rusty on here for a couple of reasons. One, we both started in the Bloom Growth community together. The difference is you've been doing your version of it for, like you said, for 20 years in the business coaching community. So what got you into that?
Yeah, to get into the operating system was kind of by accident, to be honest with you. I mean, I was coaching businesses and trying to help people, but I didn't have this just particular system. I had my system, right? Mm-hmm. And what I'd learned over the time and the period, and I'm not sure, and I'm just always looking for something better. And that piece of it, like all of us, there's just certain things in our business we hate. And there's certain things in our business we love. I loved coaching. I didn't love to be in the operation side of it or creating that operation or figuring it out. And when I come across the system for Bloom Growth, the operating system, I'm like, oh, here's my system piece. I don't have to worry about this anymore. I'll let them develop that. I'll let them take care of that side of it. I can just go coach.
Right.
And so it was a great win. So I had to just get involved with some kind of system to have because I do believe that business, you have to stay on the offense. Too often we're stuck on the defense.
Let's keep going. What do you mean by offense versus defense?
Yeah, so when we start a business, all of us, when we get into business, we have this whole offensive strategy, right? We're like, hey, we're going to make more time. We're going to make more money. We're going to have more freedom. This is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to run it. And then pretty soon we just find ourselves playing defense all day. We're just putting out fires. We're just taking care of the biggest problem for the day. And we're just working hard. And they usually call it working on the business or in the business, but what's the difference between those two? To me, it's offense or defense. And I grew up in the era, John, of defense wins championships, right? Like that was the slogan, right? Defense wins championships. But I'm here to tell you, I have every game I've ever watched in my life, those who score the most points win. And that's all offense. That's all. Defense can give you some points and they can keep you in the game. Don't get me wrong, it's important. But man, when you're playing defense all day, it's hard to win. It's just hard.
Yeah, that's a nugget. And talk about, the target market of the small to medium business owner, right? That's holding on with both hands.
Yeah.
And, to hear you put it in that context. If you're sitting back, right? Yeah. Your hands up playing, you're playing defense with a basketball or whatever, right? You're generally going backwards.
Yeah.
You're generally not going forwards.
You're reacting to whatever comes to you.
Yeah. And
there's some strategy in defense, but at the end of the day, like, you don't have the control. You don't have the control of it. And then your point of, I'm hanging on, and when you're afraid of falling, you're afraid of letting go. That's the other problem with the defensive strategy, right? When I'm afraid of falling, I'm afraid to let go. And so when we're in offense, we're where we want to be. So it's easier to let go of things and delegate and hand out. But we're in this defensive mode every day that we wake up. We're just running. We're playing scared.
Ooh, dive deeper on the letting go part for, for the audience and for, those that have experienced the operating systems, whichever one we're choosing. There's a version of all of it that is trying to help the founder people let go.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think the first thing that you mentioned is you got to have an operating system. The problem is I would say 90% of the businesses I talk to don't even have some kind of a growth system. They don't even know what that means. What if I say to you, what's a growth system? They're like, I just wake up, I work harder, I work longer hours, I hire some people maybe here or there. I don't know how to do that. I don't have a process. And so, we don't even have the system to start with. So how do you let go when you don't even know what you're supposed to let go of? Right. Does that make sense? Like, we don't even know. It's like, do I hire that first or do I hire this first? Or what does that hire even look like? And then I don't have a process for hiring. I don't have a process for where that person would fit in my business. I don't have a seat designed for it. Rather, I'm going to hire somebody out of desperation rather than inspiration, which is another thing of not having a system. Is I'm just like, I got a hole and I got a problem and I need some help. So I hire the average person, and then I realize that I'm trying to make a seat around them rather than creating this system that they fit into. And then I just created more defensive moves because now I'm putting out that fire all day because I just hired that fire.
Yeah, it's like you got a penalty flag called on you.
Right?
You're hurting yourself, right?
Yeah, I'm hurting myself because I put somebody on the field because I had a hole. I only had 10 players on there and I needed 11. And I looked over and I grabbed the punter, and really I needed a lineman.
Yeah. I love that.
Does that make sense? You know, I mean, I was the first guy in line. It's like, does somebody get on so we don't get hurt here? And, somebody's better than nobody is not always true.
No, and how often does that happen, right?
And then we can't let go of them because now we feel committed to them. Does that make sense?
That's that perpetual wheel that we as entrepreneurs just climb on, right?
It's tough.
Oh, that's great. And one thing to dissect more what you said a growth system. Yeah. Versus, most of us use the term operating system, where it's describing, again, Bloom Growth, EOS, Pinnacle, scaling up, next one up, whatever it might be.
Sure.
So interesting to hear you say that word versus the operating system, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm hearing operating does feel like a defense versus, hey, growth offense.
Yeah, and I mean, and here's the thing, the challenge with growth too is, what is growth? I mean, when I say growth, first thing that comes to people's mind is I'm going to double my bank account. Well, truthfully, you might not need to double your bank account. Maybe you need to increase your profit margin. Because I know businesses doing $20 million a year that are broke.
Yeah.
Doesn't make no sense to me, right? How do you do $20 million a year and you're broke and you're frustrated and you're mad and you want to go behind the barn? Like and it happens, right? Unfortunately. Yeah. And, I have a client exactly that. They were doing, $5+ million a year, and he told me he's ready to shut the doors. And most people would give their left leg to have a $5 million a year business. But so what are we growing? We're going to grow our people, we're going to grow our teams, we're going to grow our profit margins. Sometimes it's not the revenue itself. Sometimes we just got to grow what we already have. Mm-hmm. And we don't need to, and so sometimes we say growth to people and they get scared too.
Right.
You know what I mean? And we say operations to people and they're like, how am I supposed to figure anything out? I'm so confused and frustrated right now, and this feels like a dumpster fire, and, everything feels like more gas rather than water. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so that's the thing, though. We got to get through that to where we actually have a system that you can plug into. And I always ask the question to people is, if you died today, would your business die with you? Mm-hmm. That's a great question. Because the reason is, if you died today and your business dies with you, you have no system. You are the system.
Right. And then hence the frustration and everything else that most people tag on to being an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
When you're, or not even an entrepreneur, hey, the business owns you. You just have a job.
Yeah.
And that's like to your point earlier, I think you said 90% of the people you talk to, that's really the businesses in the world. Just like with, when you're trying to send, I know your kids are of the age where college, going to college. What's the decision? Are we going to college? How is a child supposed to know what they want to do for the rest of their life when they haven't experienced life yet?
Yeah.
And for me, right, I've made some career changes, continually throughout my life.
Absolutely.
And so, imagine we could equip our kids with something to know what they would want to do in life. Well, same thing with business, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how many people that I've talked to that are like, man, if I would just known this when I started, like how much heartache, how much work we go through, how much pain we go through, how much failure we go through.
Yeah.
when you're not equipped with it up front.
And you're exactly right. Like we as parents, our whole goal is to equip them with the ability to make decisions. It wasn't about the system. It wasn't the name of the system. It was the ability to make decisions and get aligned. And that's all we're doing with an operating system or a growth system, whatever you want to call it. It's the same thing. If you break it down, there's just certain things you're going to do every day in your business. They're fun. They're the block and tackle, right? Mm-hmm. Block and tackle. And we as humans, we will complicate everything, and we're always looking for the next sexy thing. That's the truth, right? Yeah, so we can't just leave it as block and tackle. We got to call it something cooler tomorrow in practice, or else nobody wants to show up. Yeah. It's like, we've done this forever, coach. Well, the people that win over and over do have a system. They have a process. They know what they're doing when they get up. They know how to make decisions. They run their decisions through this formula, and you can call it a business growth formula. They run everything through this formula and come out with an outcome. And just as you would hope for your kids, it's like, look, hey, things going to change. What you think you're going to be today and what you're going to be 30 years from now is different. But run that decision through this process, through this formula, through this system, and then you're going to have a better idea of whether it's a winner or not a winner. That's all we're after, right? Yeah. Like, run it through the system. And then if it's a winner, embrace it. If it's not a winner, get rid of it. It's all right. But none of us have a system. Our system is, I don't know, I just show up in the morning and whatever hits me in the face, I take that on first.
Just work hard, right? That's what my parents taught me, right? Hey, just work hard. Be a good human. That works until
hard work's important, but you got to work hard on the right things because it is hard work. I ain't going to take that away. Like, that's where people get confused is, I don't have to work hard. No, you have to work hard. It's business, man. Yeah. It's hard. But what's frustrating is doing hard work in the wrong ditch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's worth it. It takes hard work, and it's worth the reward. But you can buy it in the right ditch. You can work your butt off in the wrong ditch, and it doesn't work.
Right, and you're going the wrong direction if you haven't looked up to see where you're supposed to be going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You end up in the north field instead of the south field, and you're supposed to be in the south field today.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So.
Love it. I would like to, because we just talked about kids, and I know you're very active. Your role on the other side of things, non-business. Coach is a term that goes on both sides of it. So
yeah, coach is a term that goes on both sides. I coach sports, high school sports for 16 plus years. I was a varsity coach. So I've been in this coaching space a long time. I've got 4 kids. I've been married 31 years to the same woman. A lot of people have been married 31 years, just several different times to the same woman. But, we have 4 kids. That I have 5 grandkids now. And so it's kind of funny you say that because growing up, it was, we all have our backstory, right? But interesting enough, like, I wasn't the best kid. I had some not the best habits in life. But, man, I was like, when I got married, I changed my whole life. I changed my friends. And this was my first move, I guess, looking back, that was probably on my road to maybe being this mindset thing, right? Like the importance of this mindset. I mean, I was the guy that, I'm changing life. I don't want to do these habits because I didn't want to be the dentist with wooden teeth. Didn't want to be like, hey, you can't do that and I do that. I didn't want to tell my kids, hey, you shouldn't go out drinking and I'm out drinking or, whatever it was. And, people have their boundaries and whatever, but we had to have core values.
Yeah.
Right. And I'd never set core values in my life. Does that make sense? I mean, we had some background and my parents tried to do the things that they could. And, we had some religion in our life, but I wasn't embracing all of those things. And my core values, I really hadn't set those. Does that make sense? And in business,
you were a kid. Yeah.
You got to set the core values too. And anyway, my business got real when I got married.
Yeah.
My life business, my family business. So I started setting my core values and, I ordered my Tony Robbins tape on cassette with my little Walkman on the side. And that's how old I am. And most of the people listening to this probably don't even know what that is. But anyway, so, I started setting my core values and because I just didn't want to be that person to my kids that, said one thing and done another thing. I was going to walk the walk. I was going to talk the talk. It was both for me. And so that's all we've ever done. I've really never had a lot of outside friends. My whole family since then has been my friends. I didn't get rid of them. We just kind of found ourselves separating. Does that make sense? Yeah, absolutely. And you're going to do that in business too. Like when you start setting core values and you start setting systems in place, it will weed out those people that shouldn't be there.
No, absolutely.
So
in a meaningful way. One thing that it does amaze me about you is you're in Utah.
Yep.
Northern Utah. And you have more than just a hobby. that most of us maybe see on TV or have heard about. Mm-hmm. So and it's crazy to me, but
yeah.
What do you do on the side here? What do you do on the weekends? And
so we're a big rodeo family. We're a rodeo family. We have horses. We still do have a couple of, we're not rough stock people. I do have a couple of brain cells, so I'm not quite that crazy, and I don't ride broncs or bulls or anything like that. And I'd say that jokingly. There's some great people that ride broncs and bulls, but it just never was tough enough or brave enough, I should say, to do that. But yeah, my girls, they're 5-event athletes in the rodeo. My kids, I've hauled some of them to nationals. I've hauled them across the world, across the U.S. basically, from Utah to Nashville, Tennessee, to Des Moines, Iowa, to nationals. It's a pretty long trip hauling horses, and it's what we do. To this day, I still rope. I rope competitively. We go all over. Rodeos took my family. We don't have family vacations. We just are happy to be home finally one weekend, and because we've been on the road so much, and so we've pretty much gone 30 weekends out of the year to some rodeo somewhere, competing in some way, whether that's barrel racing, team roping, breakaway roping, whatever it might be. And so all my kids have been rodeo kids. Goes back to, one of those core values I had. My philosophy is you better keep your kids busy, because if not, the world will, and you might not like it.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that was my duty, to keep my kids busy. It goes back to my core values is, I will give them every opportunity to make the right decision in life and show them what that is. And that was part of the system.
Wow. No, that's incredible. And so to your point, right? Yeah. When you're spending 30 weekends away, your family is your friends. That's exactly what you're spending your time on.
Yeah.
I got to imagine that does teach a great deal of discipline, and I'm sure you could go down the list of things that's teaching your kids.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's habits and all that, right? Like, I can't tell you how many belt buckles are hanging in my house. Hundreds. We got saddles my kids have won. The things are just hundreds and hundreds. And I didn't have that opportunity in life. I think I won my first belt buckle when I was 25, and my kids had won 100 by the time they were 16, and, whatever, which is great. But yeah, like there's so much that comes with that, the discipline of knowing how to take care of something. And here's the thing that you have to do in life to be a great winner. You got to learn how to lose good. And you don't always win. Rodeo is a very humbling sport. Today you're on top. Tomorrow you think you'd never practice. You think you'd never been to one before. It's so unforgiving. You got to align with you, an animal, the environment. The environment's not the same. It's not like basketball. The rim's not always 10 foot tall. The courts are the exact same size. We're indoors. Some days it's raining. Some days it's snowing. Some days it's hot. Some days you're mad. Some days your horse is mad. You got to align all that and work through it. And so being able to overcome those challenges is what else in life, right? Like there's only two things in everything in business and life. There's either opportunities or obstacles, and we talk about those in the system. Yeah. And that's really all there ever is. And the thing is how are you going to process that and move on and either use it or lose it?
No, I was just about to bring it back to the business side, and because of, just how you did just beautifully there with the obstacles and opportunities, right? How you tackle it, because every shining business that people admire, right? No matter any business, there are setbacks. Yeah. And some of them are real setbacks. Yeah. And sometimes it's a fold up shop moment, and sometimes it's how are we climbing out, right? Yeah. Yeah. And so those lessons all throughout life, so that's fantastic.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's an everyday challenge. I always say that on the surface, it looks really good. Mm-hmm. And even in people's lives, individuals' lives, families' lives, on the surface, we all look pretty good, right? And time, you find the true character of all things, and you find out what's underneath and what they've went through and the story or what they're going through at the moment. Like I said, the one client I was telling you about, they're doing pretty well on the surface. It looked pretty good. Mm-hmm.
Underneath, 5 million seems like a lot.
Seems like a lot, To some people it's not much, to some it's a lot. Yeah. And that business now they're doing well. We got them a system in place, and I actually took on the role of a fractional CFO for that company because I wanted to stay close to the fire. I don't want to just be a coach. Like I want to be in the fire too. And we took that business for this year. In a year and a half, they'll do almost 16 million this year.
Oh,
so
profitably, I'm assuming.
Yes, we're actually making some profit. They have some money in the bank account. They don't have to beg people to pay their employees. They don't have to go find out who owes them money so that they can pay the people they owe money. And yeah, things are well. I mean, the tax problem this year is what are we going to do with the money rather than wish we had some money.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And that's the beauty, right? Where do you think, was there an inflection in, to get where they are today?
Yeah.
Was there a spot that you were like, it's clicking?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we all get, like especially in my space, I spend a lot of time in the blue collar, and what we're really good at in the blue collar is just getting stuff done, like the work done. Yeah. We're good at, I shouldn't say stuff, we're good at getting the work done.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's three things in all businesses. You gotta get work, you gotta get work done, and you gotta get paid for work. The three gets, right? For me. And in the construction business, sometimes depending on the economy and the market, you just gotta show up. Yeah. You don't have to have an amazing pipeline, not like, you don't have to go do 400 podcasts and trying to, whatever, build your audience and whatever. They just show up because there's not enough people in that space depending on the economy. And so sometimes that's not the problem. Getting the work done for them is usually not the problem. Where they really, really struggle is invoicing because they're not office people. They're not business people. They're workers. Mm-hmm. And you just got to understand. So what the biggest inflection point is recognizing where the holes were. Mm-hmm. And the holes were, like I'll give you an example on this company. They had a bill going through it, and I'm like, what is this charge? And they're like, I have no idea. Well, I backtracked it, and this charge had been going on for 4 years.
They didn't even know about it.
Well, they knew about it, but they had no idea what it was and didn't have time to fix it, right? Because what am I doing? I'm playing defense everywhere else. I don't have time to play offense over here. Yeah. And I mean, it's only a $40, $30 a month bill, but for 4 years, that's a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And why are we paying this, right? So you find those things and you cancel those things, and then you find out actually who owes you, and you stay on top because you realize that even though the other business you think they're on top of paying you, they don't know what they're doing either. They're struggling. They have the same problems. Does that make sense? Yeah, they have the exact same problems. So you have to keep on track of them. So being a fractional CFO, like I'm helping other people fix their books so I can get paid.
Yeah, right.
Right? Like a lot of the time. And people don't want to do that because it's like, well, it's not my responsibility. It is like if I want paid, and now we don't have any bills past 30 days. We don't owe anybody past 2 weeks. Like all that's taken care of. We don't have these random charges. Like it's all taken care of. So the turning point is, one, find your biggest hole. And if money, like if you want something to grow or become better, you got to monitor it. Yeah. If you want to grow, you got to watch it, and you got to monitor, and you got to have a system in place to measure it. Right. And we just put systems in place on certain things we want to measure, and getting paid was the biggest hole, right? Like we had plenty of work. Obviously had plenty of work, and obviously they were getting work done. They just weren't taking care of the financial side of things. Right. And,
it's funny you say that. That was one of, in business, most times in the early stages, companies think they get all the revenue they can get, right? So they're taking whatever client it could be, and as they mature, they start weeding out the bad ones. And then as they, really ones that are following the system with core values, they're not just using them for their own hiring and firing, which many people do that. It's am I putting that lens against my suppliers, against my clients?
Yes.
And you realize if you put your core values against some of your clients, and you realize why it's so hard to do business with them, because that's not an alignment. And so many companies are scared to let that go.
Yeah.
Because it's revenue. We need revenue.
Yeah.
But it's so freeing when you do move on from that. Yeah. So we had a saying for my business, right? We're in the construction space too, selling to electrical contractors, and it was like, we're getting an order from X. Mm-hmm. He's a dumpster fire, but he's our dumpster fire. Yeah. Right. We can corral him. Many clients are very well organized and everything goes smooth. This guy is they're so bad, they're just running and gunning that we need to be their organizer. Yeah. And so it does feel good, like, hey, we're going to get all of his work. That's great. Yep. Nice guy.
Yep.
But all his turmoil just creates all turmoil on our side. Yep. So but it does help us create processes then to like, okay, how are we going to keep him on track without taking all four of my people? Yep. Or four people to manage this, because he calls one person, another person. So it helps, again, without having a process, that's what happens. Chaos comes from it.
Yeah. Yeah, and being able to know that so like the whole term of, I'm self-employed is really, it's a big lie. You're never self-employed. You're always working for some other vendor or somebody else, and you get to choose that person. Maybe not at first, But down the road, once you're like, okay, this has got to align with us, it's time for us to find somebody to replace this. This is where we're going to replace this vendor because he is a dumpster fire. And if we can get somebody better that we can help grow, because at the end of the day, we take the responsibility, going back to the family thing, I take the responsibility as the head of the business or the head of the household to develop all of my vendors also. Mm-hmm. I meet with them and I try to meet with them and help them grow their business because it's critical to me. Mm-hmm. And I want great vendors, or I want great subs, or I want those people to grow also. I don't want to keep hiring dumpster fires. Right. I want to have a great team. And your team goes farther than just your office. Mm-hmm. It goes out throughout their offices too. So if you can pass that on and help them, then makes your life easier.
Absolutely.
Because finding that ideal candidate, good luck.
Right. Getting to dancing back around. We'll just keep jumping back around.
Sure.
We'll go back to the family. So with your wonderful wife of 31 years, what role do you feel that you're playing within the walls at home?
What role? Well, I think first and foremost, obviously I'm going to provide a safe place, a place that my children don't have to worry about, what's next in life. We don't have the fanciest things or, we don't have this lavish lifestyle of anything. I mean, I do believe in that my kids have to struggle, and I'm okay with that. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm one of the few parents probably that are okay watching my kids struggle because I know that growth comes from struggle, and I know making good decisions come from struggle. We as humans, our nature is we always want it better than we had it, right? Like, I'm going to give my kids better than what I had, which is fine. That's great. But at the end of the day, what I want them to have better than I had is being able to make better decisions. Not better clothes, not better cars, not better horses. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I give my kids horses that aren't very good sometimes to ride so they can just understand what it's like, the difference between starting a horse and having a finished horse, right? Like, that's the whole process of life. And so my role is to help them in that space. Is I try to do that, and I try to make sure that they know what a good work ethic is. Like, when they show up, they take pride in what they do. I don't care if you're serving French fries at McDonald's or, waitressing at one of the top restaurants in the world. Like, you take pride in it. It doesn't matter where you're at. Pride is a self thing. It's not because I'm in this situation. So that goes throughout everywhere. And so that's my role. One is just, as a parent, and it's so frustrating to me because it's been a lot of sacrifice. Like, I'm going to be honest with you. Today's my daughter's 18th birthday and I'm at a conference. Yeah. Right? Like, but at the end of the day, most people would have canceled other things to be there, which is fine. I get it. Like, some people are probably going to be like, well, you're crazy. It's your daughter's 18th birthday. Well, we'll fix that. We'll celebrate another day. And we had that conversation, but it's still my role to provide. It's still my role to go out and do what I'm supposed to do and make sure that my family's taken care of first and foremost, and part of that's financially, but part of that's spiritually, and part of that, is physically. There's more to it than, just providing the money. And so that would, so I guess in a nutshell, I know that was pretty long about that, but in a nutshell, it's, one is to be the example and make sure that I'm doing all I can to provide a lifestyle that works for them, but also teaches them what the world's about when they leave, because it's not always going to be the same as when they leave the home.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love how intentional you are with all those aspects in life, right? Those roles that we play. One thing I like to do in closing is ask if there's a mistake, a failure, a misstep, something in life that you have not succeeded in that helps you move forward today.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably plenty of things, I can think about investments that I've made that didn't go the way they were supposed to, that's cost me a lot of money, choices, whatever it might be. But I would say that one in particular, you got to trust people. And unfortunately, sometimes it doesn't always work the way that it was supposed to. Yeah. And, when you're going and you think you're pretty big and you figured out a lot of things and you've built some things and you're like, man, I got this business stuff figured out. One thing that I would say that was probably the biggest lesson for me in life is I had everything figured out. I was living in a community. We had what I would call a necessity business, which was a mechanic business. Your car broke down, you had to get it fixed. It wasn't a luxury business where you either choose to hire it or you don't. Like, it was a necessity business. So the difference in that, and we built that, and then I got really big in the community, and everybody wanted me to help with this business. I got involved with other businesses, helped one guy grow his business, from 10 employees to 80 in like a year and a half, and whatever. And anyway, I thought I was pretty cool, and so I moved. And I thought I could move to another area and just be another successful businessman. So here's my lesson in that. It didn't work that way. I'm 10 years rebuilding right now to that date. And the reason being is, one, I went to a luxury business, which is coaching, because not everybody deems it necessary, right? Right. Which it is, but, it's necessary. And you will say that it's necessary. And I believe it's necessary because the best in the world have a lot of coaches. Right. The best. But I moved. And what I didn't realize at the time, John, is I left my village. Yeah, right. And wherever you are, you're building a village. Yeah. And the moment you leave that village, you start over. You don't start where you left the other village. Right. You started over. So whatever I tried in that area, it worked because people already trust me, liked me, knew me. Yeah. And I could go from owning a mechanic business to owning a landscaping business and be successful to starting a multi-level company. Whatever it was, right? Like, people are like, oh, if Rusty's in it turns to gold. Right. It must be good. And let's get involved, because they knew who I was. We had commercial buildings. We had a couple of, whatever, and we were well known. And I left that village, thinking that was me. And I did build it at the end of the day, but the moment I left the village, I had no other village. And when I went to start over, I started back. Yeah. Completely back. And that was probably one of the biggest epiphany moments in my life. And it took me 5 years to figure out I'd left my village. I couldn't figure out what the problem was, right? Yeah. So I moved from this area to kind of a ranching area in Wyoming, and thought I could just do stuff online and build it in a heartbeat. And no, it didn't happen. And
you know what? That comes back to similarly where you had talking about when you speak to an owner and you say, hey, if you died today, does your business die with you? You had built, and so the other side of that is you build a team around you, so that it's not about you. Yeah. So, but you did build a team around you. Yeah. And so you had that team. That's a great awareness and a great lesson of knowing what you're stepping into, right? And those that are.
So I thought I was a pretty good businessman, and I mean, I get it now. And so, but those are great things we can talk about today, right? When somebody comes to me and says, hey, I'm going to move to a new terrier store, start a new thing. And I'll be like, yeah, let's chat about that.
I love it. And you would, right? Because that's in Absolutely. Your heart is helping. So. Yeah.
I do more stuff for free than I do paid. But that's all right. That's why we're coaches, because we have a big heart to help people, and that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. And you wear yours on your sleeve, Rusty. I really, really appreciate you joining me today. Had a ball. We could probably go for a couple hours with all the nuggets you could share with everyone here. So thanks, everyone. How can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can just go to rustyburnside.com. There's only one of us out there, really. There's not many Rusty Burnside, so it's really simple. Go to rustyburnside.com, or you can look me up on LinkedIn or Facebook, but the easiest place, just go to rustyburnside.com, and they can get a hold of me there.
Love it. Thanks again. Well, everyone, please follow, like, share, and let's share this great message with everyone you know.
Yeah. Thanks, John. Great being here.
Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to The Roll Call with John Glahn. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe for more insightful conversations. Remember, discovering your true role in life is a journey worth exploring each and every day. Until next time, keep defining your path and living your authentic self. This is John Glahn signing off.